We've got an opioid crisis in the country right now that is like nobody's business. I was seeing people who were non-traditional addicts. And what I mean by that is like grandmothers who were on pain medicines from knee surgery and then got hooked and then they started doing heroin.
Usually it starts out with physical pain or emotional pain that they can't get any help for.
If someone's been in pain for 10, 20, 30 years, what's going on exactly? Why is the body not healing?
Hi, and welcome back to Proven, Healing Breakthroughs Backed by Science. I'm Nick Palizzi, and in this next episode, we're going to be exploring a 4-letter word that affects far too many of us: pain. Did you know that roughly 1 in 4 adults in the Western world suffers from some form of pain on a daily basis? It isn't a new thing. We've been feeling pain since the beginning of our existence. It's a natural part of who we are. And believe it or not, pain is your friend. Without it, you'd leave your hand on a hot stove without ever realizing that you were hurting yourself. You'd walk on that sprained ankle without ever knowing that you were causing more damage to the underlying muscle and tendons. Pain is there to let us know when things are wrong, to protect us. But once it's done its job of alerting us to what's there, there's no benefit from pain signals anymore. In fact, these signals can start to ruin our life if they're not managed properly. So how do we work through chronic and even acute pain safely and effectively? Well, the science is in, and there are some remarkable techniques and therapies that we all need to know about. Are you ready? Let's go.
What is pain? That's a really good question because pain is so complicated. There is one school of thought, now that they can measure things in the brain, that says all pain is in your brain. Well, no. You perceive pain in your brain. Pain is registered in the sensory cortex and the pain centers in the thalamus. So in order for the thalamus to get this signal about the fact that a tiger bit you in the leg, right, there has to be a pain nerve down there. Also, there's a vagus nerve down there in the blood vessels. And all that information goes screaming up to the brain. There are what's called pain nerves called nociceptors that are everywhere. They keep you alive. Pain is important to survival, right?
If you're moving a joint that's sore, if you're moving a joint that's hurting, a joint that's swollen, then the body tells you don't move that joint.
What if you went cross-country skiing and you tore your medial meniscus? So that's a peripheral pain generator. There are genes in that area locally that turn on, so the cell starts making inflammatory products. Those are local. The inflammation has a local effect on the knee, the bone, the cartilage, the nerves, and that local pain is indeed conveyed up to the brain, and that's why you limp. And you limp without even thinking about it. You don't have to think about it. Cerebellum's got it. It's like, it's all right, don't you worry about it. I can keep this knee safe. And you limp in a very particular way. You are going to limp different if your knee is injured than if your hip is injured. You don't do that. Your cerebellum does that. That all happens here in the brain. You need a very active immune system to heal this injury. So the thalamus turns the vagus off. So you notice that for a couple, 3 days after you tore up your knee, your digestion's not so good and you aren't that hungry. It's all coordinated. The vagus stops controlling your immune system. So this knee can get inflamed in the size of a grapefruit because the vagus isn't telling the immune system to chill out. It's fine. It is not fine. We're going to die. My knee is hurt. So it's a communication and coordination process that is completely out of your control. When the inflammation goes down here, the brain gets, oh, it's better. That is a normal pain response. The place people get tangled up is when pain becomes chronic.
So when you have chronic pain, the brain is like on high alert. And that means even if you touch hairs on your hands, the brain perceives that as a threat and perceives that as pain, even though it's not a pain signal. And I call it chronic pain brain. So when the brain is flooded with pain signals from the periphery on a regular basis, they change your alertness levels, they create brain fog, and so on. Those are all effects of chronic pain for the brain.
You can amplify pain in your brain if the thalamus gets so much pain for so long. The thalamus actually changes its job from pain suppression to pain amplification.
So you can not only treat the periphery, treating the brain becomes an important part of the treatment process, not just treating yourself where your pain is, but treating the memory of it. And if you suppress the pain signal in the brain's recollection of it, then you decrease the pain in general in that body. Because chronic pain brain also causes sensitization. So what you want to do is quiet down the brain, heal the periphery as well. You try to take care of the tissue of the cause as much as you can as well.
The truth of the matter is that your immune system regulates pretty much how much pain you're going to have. So it is a truism in medicine that you can have two patients that walk in with exactly the same x-rays. The x-rays of their low back are horrible. This guy's out playing golf 3 days a week and wonders, can he have an Advil? This guy is asking for lumbar spine surgery. He is inflamed. He doesn't sleep. His pain is really bothersome. And that's where the pain system becomes important to understand. Different people handle these signals differently.
Why is it that some people, let's say you can have 20 people that each have some kind of injury to their shoulder, and a certain number of them will go through a typical healing process, and eventually it gets better after a few months or whatever it is. And other people, it never gets better. It just keeps lingering.
Medicine has taken it a skeptical step too far by saying this guy's faking it. No, this guy's immune system is sensitized. It is an interwoven system, and it's different in acute pain versus chronic pain. It's absolutely fascinating.
All right, the first of our 5 alternative solutions is a breakthrough known as frequency-specific microcurrent, or FSM. It's technically been around for over 2 decades, but it's now becoming a go-to treatment for pain and the underlying issues that cause it. FSM falls under the category of electromedicine. And after this next segment, I think you'll understand why this new realm of healing is quickly being embraced by health practitioners around the world.
So microcurrent therapy is used, what it basically is, it's very low level electrical currents in the millionth of an amp range. The 1960s, they started making things called TENS units, transcutaneous electric nerve stimulation, which is very crude compared to microcurrent, but it had a certain amount of pain blocking effect.
There is a difference between devices that just turn off pain, like spinal cord stimulators and TENS units. Microcurrent works differently. It is approved in the category of TENS devices as a matter of regulatory convenience only.
So microcurrent, which was actually developed in Germany by Dr. Reinhold Fohl and some other colleagues, was a much lower current that's much more precise in how it's used. Like you can put pad electrodes and apply microcurrent, say, to the whole arm or the whole lower back or to the head or to the knees. And so that's one way it's done. And then it can also be put on to specific acupuncture points, which is my specialty. That's what I develop with my equipment. And so I call that microcurrent electroacupuncture, which would be, the specificity of doing it that way. Now, Carolyn McMakin, who's a pioneer in the field of microcurrent, she connected with some naturopathic doctors that had come up with charts of frequencies, kind of like a map to the frequencies of the body. So like which frequencies reduce inflammation or congestion, or which ones get the lymphatic system moving, or which ones are good for tapping into, say, the amygdala of the brain and reducing PTSD symptoms. So they kind of mapped out which frequencies do what. And then she pioneered applying that through microcurrent equipment and has been teaching that all over the world and very effectively. So that's called FSM, or frequency-specific microcurrent.
So frequency-specific microcurrent, the combination of the microcurrent and the frequencies treat the cause of the pain. So if you have inflammation in the facet joints, the posterior joints in your low back. The only way to treat low back pain with frequency-specific microcurrent is to run the frequencies to reduce inflammation in the tissues of those posterior joints. Inflammation in the cartilage, the bone, the periosteum, that pain-sensitive lining of the bone, the ligaments, the tendons, the nerves, the dura. It treats the cause of the pain. And when it doesn't work, it's because you missed something. The whole myofascial community really wanted myofascial pain to be a muscle disease, something wrong with the muscles. We don't treat the muscle. We treat the underlying cause. Sometimes it's discs, facets, the nerve. You are gluten sensitive and you had a sandwich for lunch. The inflammation in your small intestine caused by the food you ate feeds back into the spinal cord, irritates those nerves. Those nerves make the muscles in your abdomen tight, and you show up 3 days later or 2 days later with trigger points in your rectus abdominis that cause low back pain. Your complaint is low back pain. What they have to treat is the small intestine. For us, it's like, yeah, muscles of collateral damage. Treat small intestine for inflammation, allergy reaction, have a come to Jesus conversation with the person who ate the sandwich, and the low back pain gets better. Muscle pain goes away. Like literally, the knots just disappear. So we use it post-operatively. So after facial plastic surgery, which normally leaves them pretty beat up looking, they don't bruise. Hip replacements, post-op hip surgeries, jaw surgery. I had a jaw infection from root canals. And I tell people casually, yeah, I've had 9 jaw surgeries. And they're like, oh, how horrible. It's like, nah. Put the sticky pads here, put the sticky pads there, you run the machine. Doesn't bruise, doesn't swell. Maybe you take 2 Advil, and that's it. December 19th of 2004, on a Monday morning, I get a phone call. And it is Buddy Prim, who is Terrell Owens' private trainer. And he said, Terrell was hurt yesterday, and he wants to play in the Super Bowl in 6 weeks. And his chiropractor, who does FSM, said he's not going to do it. It's going to have to be you. Can it be done? I said, well, the injury was he had an open spiral fracture in the fibula. The tough membrane that holds the tibia and the fibula together was shredded. Nothing was holding those two bones together. And the ligaments that hold basically your foot onto the bones, those were shredded. And he was having surgery on Tuesday morning. And I said, well, they've already been treating the fracture, but I have to be there when he gets out of the surgery. Got on a plane, treated him in the car on the way home from the surgery. I put sticky pads on him and started treating him to stop the bleeding, reduce the inflammation, stop the bleeding, repair the torn tissue. Treated him all the way home. That was an hour. And it was 10 o'clock in the morning, and I treated him until 10 o'clock the next day. I slept sitting up, and I'd wake up as you do every hour or two, punch a button, go back to sleep, treat the bleeding, treat the inflammation, treat the torn and broken, treat the fracture. And at 10 o'clock Wednesday morning, the team trainer came in. His name's Rick Burkholder. Took the Velcro off the boot, got some bandage scissors, cut the gauze, and opened it up. There was zero bruising, zero swelling. There was so little swelling that you could see the plate and the Phillips head screws that they had used to hold the two bones together. This guy has 6%, 8% body fat. And Burkholder said, he's very restrained. How do I take advantage of what you can do? And I said, well, you're going to have to believe what you see, because I've never done anything like this before. So I treated him another probably 14 hours that day. And then I think it was Christmas Eve. So I treated him morning, flew home Christmas Eve. Burkholder, on the 26th, had him running in a swimming pool, 3 feet of water with a Ziploc baggie on his leg, an hour a day to take the gravity off of it. Think about it. He had not only to be repaired, he had to be physically fit to play in the Super Bowl. He's a wide receiver. He sprints. I came back the following Monday. He and his girlfriend are playing tag and throwing snowballs in sneakers in 3 inches of snow 1 week after a career-ending injury. So I treated him 3 to 5 hours a day, 5 days a week, for 5 weeks. At the end of 4 weeks, everybody will remember the surgeon was running around telling anybody with a microphone or a pen that this was a career-ending injury. It was at least 18 weeks or a year and a half, and he was being stupid and blah, blah, blah. And he wouldn't clear Terrell to play, to weight bear and practice. Mr. Burkholder had a different idea. So he said, I'll get him cleared. So we took a fluoroscopy, it's a moving picture x-ray, and showed that the ankle was completely stable. The ligaments were completely healed. The fracture, an open spiral fracture, was healed bone to bone in 4 weeks. That's not possible. And Burkholder said, yep, he can practice. So they did. I mean, the trainers were brilliant. He had him playing video games with his feet to get the proprioception back. And then got to the Super Bowl. He got there Tuesday, and he couldn't run. I got there Wednesday. His massage therapist, Brian Glotzbach, and I put him on a massage table in the bowels of the stadium at the Super Bowl. And I ran the frequencies, and Brian has fingers like steel. And we took apart the scar tissue in his leg down to the bone, 5 hours. The frequencies resonate with the bonds that hold the scar tissue together. So you wait for it to soften, and then you just blow right through it with your finger. And it goes all the way down. Brian still describes it as bloodless surgery. It was crazy. And then his chiropractor came on Thursday and adjusted the ankle, played on Sunday like he'd never been hurt, 157 yards. If they'd won the game, somebody might know about FSM having done that. But the quarterback kept getting sacked, and he really hates getting sacked, and he really hates the snow. So we lost. What we did with Terrell Owens is still impossible.
Okay, so we just heard about a very important healing technology that most of us don't know about. I sure didn't until we created this series. Now we're going to dive into another technological breakthrough, which, like FSM, has been around for decades, but is only now beginning to become a standard complementary treatment for everything from brain trauma to incontinence to, you guessed it, pain. It's called biofeedback, which is essentially tracking a specific function in the body to measure how well it's doing, and then learning how to train that function in real time so it and your quality of life improves. Think of a Fitbit, and then imagine that same idea, but for a variety of other functions your body performs. You'll hear about different types of biofeedback in other episodes, but for the purposes of this one, let's find out what biofeedback can do for pain.
Tension headaches, migraines, neck and shoulder pain are endemic. They're common. Biofeedback is a remarkable tool that can be used to develop voluntary control. In terms of tension headaches specifically, this goes all the way back to the work of Tom Budzinski, who used muscle feedback from the forehead to teach people to relax and then also practice at home. Now people probably record more the muscle tension of the neck and shoulders, because most of us unknowingly, when we feel stressed or when someone is behind us, we slightly raise our shoulders without knowing.
If I asked you right now to hold your shoulders up, going to do this, go ahead, do that. Now I want you to stay like that for the next 3 weeks. You know that you would be in pain, after that. And most of us do that unconsciously, and we don't even realize that we're doing it it's just what we do.
And if you want to have the experience how to quickly get a tension headache, let me do it for you. All you do is you bring your head slightly forward. Now crunch your neck back like this, tilt it, and really crunch down. Keep crunching, keep crunching, keep crunching. Do this for 30 or 40 seconds, and most likely you'll feel a funny feeling occur here. It will take quite a while to go away. I'm not saying that all tension headaches are like that, but notice if you can induce a symptom, it means that maybe the way I'm using myself contributes to developing the symptom. So with biofeedback, you would monitor the tension. The person would learn not just to relax it. Control means relaxing and tightening minimally and relaxing again, because then you have control. Control means turning a symptom on and then off. That means that during the day you can start feeling, oh, I'm just tightening.
Then you can help identify, oops, what's going on? And now I have an option to say, I'm choosing to let my shoulders relax. I'm choosing to get taller. Let me give an example. One of my students had labeled migraines, probably tension headaches, about 3 times a week or more. She had this for the last 6 or 8 years. And in this class, my students then learn to monitor themselves. They also learn a technique called autogenic training, where you learn to relax and do control. And then she found she was getting slightly better. Then she monitored the muscle tension on her shoulders. It was high, and when she tightened it, it went even higher. And when she relaxed, it didn't quite relax. But she thought she relaxed it. Then she practiced this, and she changed her posture. Because if my posture is like this the whole day, working at the computer, I'll probably get more tension headaches or neck and shoulder tension. And what happened in the class is I became a verbal posture feedback device. So whenever I saw her going like this, I would sort of go like that. When she saw me in the hallway, etc. And she really did it. She really practiced the skill. Her headaches in about 3 weeks dropped to 0 and has stayed 0 ever since without any medication. And there's a published paper with the graph if you want to show it. But that is the concept. The concept is you want to learn the physical mastery. That's the physiological skill. Then you still have options. You have to identify in your world what causes that tension. And if you're not going to change that, it's unlikely biofeedback will be very helpful. Now, there are many different ways of doing the muscle biofeedback. Another technique we now use is posture feedback. You can use a device that tells you every time your head goes like this, your spine collapses. And so if you're sitting up, you calibrate it so to be erect. And now when you slightly collapse, it vibrates. And you can even see it on your cell phone, which is very useful. And now you have an option, because now as you're walking or you're working, I'm at the computer, and now without knowing I'm looking at the screen, I don't know that I'm doing it because I'm captured by the text and the material I'm working on. It vibrates. Oh, I change. I sit up. I may now need to change the ergonomic setup. I may need to get a larger screen. I may need glasses. I may need a different chair. And I keep doing this, and after a while I can hold this new posture more. It's really an extended posture, more open. And then people find that they have more energy, they have less symptoms, and they feel more powerful. And it's most impressive if you look at posture, by the way, that we now live in a posture that I'll call our natural cell phone posture. That's how we see almost everybody sitting like this, everywhere. And when you sit like this, you're really putting yourself in a body position of defense. You don't know that, but you are. And that means you're also changing your hormonal levels. You're changing the relationship, how people look at you. You lose your empowerment. And your thinking it's more difficult to do abstract thinking. You get more quickly captured in defense mode. You have no idea you're doing it.
Wow, we're really getting into some powerful technologies in this episode, huh? Well, there's a reason we're showing these to you. The science is conclusive that electromedicine and new forms of biotech are where it's at when it comes to pain. We'll be moving to some more traditional pain practices in a few minutes. But before we do that, there's one more wired healing method to explore. It's called PEMF. And well, I'll let the pros tell you what it is and why it's being hailed by so many.
PEMF is pulse electromagnetic frequency, and it's a type of therapy that's been around over 30 years, and it's based on quantum physics and more specifically frequency theory. And the basis of the technology is that everything has a frequency signature, which is accepted in science. For example, in food science, they take goop and they attach a frequency to it, and it becomes natural flavorings. We know the frequency of everything basically in the universe. So what PEMF says is that there are certain healthy frequencies, and PEMF is pulsed, and I can set that technology to come in with a corrective frequency that it's sent through the skin. That pulsing will disrupt the cellular communications, come in with a corrective communication, which then gets the body, promotes self-healing.
In the body, if you have ions that are floating around in the body, or even if they're static in the tissue of the body, when you apply a magnetic field, you move the charges that are associated with those ions, and you're creating charge. Now you start to create movement. So those ions are static. They're sitting there, not doing anything. Once you push the magnetic field against it, now you create charge. And this is the basis of magnetic field therapy. When you create charge in the tissue, you create dynamic action. And that dynamic action starts to move things. So what is disease? Disease is the lack of energy to finish the job of rebalancing and healing. That's basically what disease is. It's a lack of charge to be able to finish the job of healing. So one of the stories is magnetic fields were originally approved by the FDA, Food and Drug Administration in the US, were approved for healing fractures that wouldn't heal. So if you break a bone and it doesn't heal after 6 months, it's called a non-union. Well, that's a disaster. So how do you fix a non-union? If it hasn't healed on its own, it's probably not going to heal over time. So you do surgery, you plate it, you do all sorts of things that are destructive and create their own problems. Well, they discovered magnetic fields stimulate bone formation. Right? And so what you do is you apply a magnetic field, a pulse magnetic field to the bone. All of a sudden you create charge. You reactivate the healing process because it happened in the first place because there wasn't enough charge to finish the job. So now you're creating charge, and now the job gets done. Now you have to treat for hours a day for a year, possibly, to get a union. But it's non-invasive. It's not toxic. People don't get sick from it. It's easy to use, relatively easy to use. It doesn't happen overnight. It doesn't happen like that. Probably one of the most common uses of PEMFs is for pain. And most of the time it's going to be what we call musculoskeletal pain, like a shoulder problem, a frozen shoulder, or an injury, a cut, a wound, a back pain, a knee pain, arthritis, very commonly associated with pain. Well, what's causing the pain in arthritis? There's a lot of changes that are happening in a joint, around a joint with arthritis. It's the soft tissues, it's the capsule of the joint itself, it's the cartilage itself, it's new bone formation, it's nerves that are being irritated by inflammation, and bone rubbing on bone, or bones are stretching the ligaments and the tissues that are not strong enough to support that joint. So there's all kinds of reasons. So when you're doing magnetic field therapy, you're not only getting the pain-killing effect that comes naturally, but you're reducing inflammation. You're decreasing the swelling in the tissues. So you actually increase mobility of the joint. Again, multiple mechanisms that are happening simultaneously when you apply a magnetic field. And that all reduces the pain. And you get rid of the pain more permanently by using the magnetic therapy on a regular basis. So if you find the right magnetic field intensity for that tissue, then you're going to notice a much faster improvement in the pain process. Again, multiple mechanisms. You can't just say it's one thing that causes pain reduction with PEMFs. Can you use PEMFs along with other therapies for pain reduction? For the most part, the answer is there's no competition, there's no problem. But there is a but, and that is that the opioids address the opioid receptors in the body. If you're suppressing those opioid receptors with medication, there's a chance that you won't be able to actually have the PEMF work as well in terms of the pain reduction. But that shouldn't stop you because, again, the goal is not to just reduce the pain. The goal is to heal the cause. If you're doing opioids or you're doing nonsteroidal anti-inflammatories, they're not that powerful anyway in terms of inflammation. And they work through the whole body. So you can't deliver anti-inflammatory, like an anti-inflammatory cream locally and get really good absorption deep into that joint. So the answer is you could and should you be using magnetic field therapy with almost anything, because of the healing benefits that you're going to get from the magnetic fields.
Anecdotally, about 98% of people in my experience who are using PEMF have an instantaneous relaxing response, which is something people are craving and we need. And it's why I do PEMF every day. Your body has no idea whether you're experiencing happy stress, like planning for a wedding or you have an exciting project, or bad stress. You're in an abusive relationship. You're worried about your kid. So we need to do things every day to support our nervous system to get into a healthy rhythm, to feel relaxed, so that we can experience not only good physical health, but good mental health as well.
The science has grown almost exponentially. I have over 30,000 abstracts on the effects of magnetic fields on biology. And I probably have 5,000 studies on different magnetic systems. I just actually posted a blog on my website for menstrual cramps. The treatment of menstrual cramps were compared to their baseline. The patient themselves was their own control. Then they had a group that compared it to the use of non-steroidal anti-inflammatories called diclofenac. And there's a third study that actually compared it to high-intensity laser therapy. Magnetic fields were found to be almost equivalent to high-intensity laser therapy. High-intensity laser requires very expensive equipment, which requires you to go to a doctor to get the treatment. And if you're having menstrual cramps every month, you got to go every month to get treatment. So that becomes expensive and all the other problems associated with it. And as far as diclofenac is concerned, magnetic therapy was actually more useful than the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, did a better job. And even on its own, without comparison, people before and after magnetic field therapy, it works very well. So magnetic therapy and acupuncture have been compared, and what's been found is that the two together work better than either one alone, because they work synergistically. There was a study actually done in Cuba using ozone therapy for arthritis of the knee, and they found that the combination of the two was better than either one alone, because they have different mechanisms. So if you understand the mechanisms of the two, then you begin to see how they could combine to produce even better effects than either one alone. So magnetic therapy is not a panacea. It should be considered to be used in conjunction with a host of other therapies that maximize the recovery of the person. Nutrition. So if you're poisoning yourself with sugar and then you're trying to treat yourself with magnetic field therapy, well, it's like pouring gasoline on the fire and then doing magnetic field therapy to try to put out the fire. But you're continuing to pour gasoline on the fire. So that's not very smart. What are the mechanisms that PEMFs do? As I said, there are about 25 of them. And the primary mechanisms that everybody talks about are to decrease inflammation, improve circulation, reduce swelling in the tissues, stimulate healing and regeneration of the tissue, stimulate stem cells. So those are like 5 key mechanisms for magnetic field therapy to work. And of those 25 mechanisms, you don't decide what's going to happen. The body decides what's going to happen. So everything is available to be worked on at any given moment. And what the body will do is it will move the things that are the easiest to move the fastest. For example, I mentioned bone healing. Well, it could take a year to fix a non-union. But a regular fracture can heal in about half the time with magnetic field therapy. So if it takes 12 weeks to heal, in other words, to have a usable arm, taking the cast off and being able to use it, you can decrease that healing time by upwards of a half. The same thing applies to wounds. Wounds will heal in close to half the time as well, because you're stimulating regeneration, you're decreasing inflammation. You're decreasing chronic inflammation. You're actually not decreasing acute inflammation, so it doesn't interfere with healing, which you don't want to interfere with. Pain reduction is one of the key proven mechanisms. You get almost instant pain reduction. It has a natural anti-pain effect without any of the other mechanisms. So it helps pain through healing all those other things that cause pain in the first place, right? Because all pain is associated with inflammation. That's how it starts, right? You damage the tissue, then you get pain. Well, if you decrease inflammation, you decrease pain. So part of the benefit of healing a pain problem, a chronic pain problem, is that you're healing it. You're not just putting a Band-Aid on it. You're not just taking the pain away. I call that numbing and dumbing. But that's not the goal, because you take that away, and what happens? If you haven't healed the cause, the pain is still there. It's going to be there for the rest of that person's life until you heal it. PEMFs have the opportunity to heal the pain and to decrease the actual amount of pain that's there too.
I hope you're enjoying tonight's episode. We'll get right back into it in a second, but I wanted to take a quick moment to tell you how you can own the entire series. Below this video, you'll find a link to the full Proven docuseries, as well as a bunch of powerful bonuses that you can bring into your home at a special discounted price. This also includes a Proven companion guidebook that's jam-packed with powerful takeaways and action items from each episode. It's loaded with deep dive wisdom that isn't included in our free premiere. On top of that, we're hosting 2 live Q&As where you can ask questions directly to some of the renowned experts you see in these episodes. If you're interested in bringing these powerful, proven healing solutions into your life, it's well worth checking out. Plus, the proceeds from your purchase will help us on our quest to unveil new breakthrough medicines and share this information with the world. Make sure to check it out. Now back to tonight's episode. All right, now we're going to dive into a healing art that has many names and styles. It's called manual medicine, or the use of physical manipulation on the body. We've been doing this as humans for millennia, and there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different forms. But when it comes to manual medicine that is proven for pain, we're going to be focusing on 2 different types in the next segment. Our first stop is chiropractic. Now, growing up outside of New York City, the word chiropractor had a certain connotation to it. I remember a friend of the family was a chiropractor, and the other adults used to talk about what he did with a sort of skeptical suspicion. And that attitude was pretty common through the 80s, 90s, and even early 2000s, until the amount of data showing the undeniable health benefits of chiropractic was too robust to ignore. For years, chiropractic was pushed out of mainstream medicine, and there are a number of theories as to why. But nowadays, this alternative approach to healing the body is covered by many insurance policies and has widely been embraced for its use on a number of different ailments. But one of the most popular and widely studied applications is on pain. So, without further ado, let's look at how and why chiropractic works so well.
In chiropractic, we say that if the body is self-healing and self-regulating, and if the nervous system is the master system and controller of that body, then it stands to reason that if you interfere with nervous system function, you will interfere with the ability for the body to heal and regulate. What causes that interference is stress in 3 dimensions. Physical, how you use your body; biochemical, what you put into your body; and psychological, that whole mind-body connection. That stress, when it's beyond your body's ability to adapt or dissipate, starts to cause these patterns, what we call in the spine subluxation, where you start to get altered patterns or alignment of spinal segments. That's a byproduct of stress coming in the system. The body's saying, I can't process you all right now, I'm overwhelmed. So it's stored, it's got to go somewhere. So it starts to store in and around the spine. It causes contraction of postural muscles. Contraction of postural muscles attached to the spinal bone start to cause distortion in the spinal segments. You distort the spinal segments, it starts to cause pressure on the nervous system, and you see this cycle set up. So what the chiropractor is doing is observing those patterns. If those patterns exist, if the person is subluxated, then we want to release those patterns, dissipate the stress, and allow the body to function again. Get it out of the overwhelm, the overdrive. Everybody's got a different ability to adapt to stress. We call it the general adaptive potential. Might be a little bit, meaning that you're really stressed and you're going to be very sick if it's a little bit. And if we can increase your general adaptive potential, your body will start to process the stress and dissipate it as compared to accumulate it. When it accumulates and it goes unresolved, disease is what's going to occur. If you dissipate it and let the body function, then the adaptation increases and then disease does not occur. So it's a really different model of thinking than a physical therapist who's going to say, oh, it hurts over here. No, it's like, let's look at you, see how your body's adapting to stress. The technology that I co-developed helps to measure that and quantify it. And then let's adjust your spine and over time, see how that changes. So some of the adjusting techniques in chiropractic might seem manipulative in nature, meaning you might hear some cracking or pops. Some are completely low force and you don't hear anything, but there's still a constructive force put into that spine and nervous system. The body utilizes that force to reorganize itself and then heal and dissipate stress. There's two kinds of chiropractors. You have those full spectrum chiropractors, which is the traditional practice, which is what I'm promulgating. You also have chiropractors who decide that they want to narrow the scope to deal with pain only, and they really do manipulation and for relieving pain. They're not really doing specific adjustments over time, really monitoring your nervous system, etc. So if somebody walks into a chiropractor and they expect them to do what I said earlier, they might get disappointed. You have to ask the chiropractor, what is the purpose of your practice? And then they'll tell you. Chiropractic just for pain is also very effective. I mean, it works, but it's going to be limited. But the reality is there are a good amount of randomized controlled clinical trials showing that people with certain types of pain syndromes certainly respond very, very well to chiropractic care. It's just a choice you want to make. And I think that's what, anybody watching this, that's a choice they have to think about. Do I want to get fully healthy and get my body operating harmoniously, which you can't find that in RCTs and randomized controlled clinical trials. It's something expanded to think about. Or do I just have a symptom I want to get control of right now and go back to maybe what I would think is a sicker life? Pain is perceived as a bad thing. Pain is perceived as the enemy, but it's very important and very necessary. And in the medical paradigm, typically it's, you got pain? Let me just give you a painkiller. Ignore the pain. You're ignoring the body telling you to do something, to adapt to something that's wrong. I got a headache. Well, the body's probably telling you to lay down. You need some rest. And yet you take a painkiller, kill the headache, and you keep pushing. So now you escalate to bigger problems because you're not paying attention to your body. And listen, episodally, in certain circumstances, sometimes I need relief. I certainly have done it. But for the most part, again, it's your philosophy. The worst thing in the world is to continue to numb your body to pain rather than respond to the pain and find out what you need to do. Your body's talking to you, and you better listen, otherwise you're going to pay a price.
Part 2 of our manual medicine segment focuses on a technique with a very unique name that has been around for half a century. It's called the Feldenkrais method. And although its fundamentals are almost intuitively simple, the results it produces can be life-changing. Over the course of our lives, whether by injury or misuse of our muscles and bones, we forget how to move our body in the way it was intended to be moved, the way we moved when we were children. The Feldenkrais method is a way back to a wholeness that many of us might have forgotten was possible.
My first day of training with Dr. Feldenkrais, he said, what's the most important quality that you can bring to this class? And people raised their hand and said, strength, flexibility, stretching, knowledge, intelligence. But that's not what he was looking for. And by asking that question of the class, he immediately had us in a state of what he was looking for the answer, curiosity. It was being curious about ourselves again, about life, and you see it's very large. It's not just our bodies, it's life and learning. And you see that in a baby's face. So I look to encourage people to remember, to recall, is that curiosity, especially about their movement. How do they do things? But also be curious about how they limit themselves. In my classes and when I'm working individually, the most important response for me that I get, I like it when they say, oh yeah, my pain's better, I don't have that, I can feel this is easier and things like that. But what I like most of all is when I get, wow. And it's out of that, isn't that interesting? I didn't know I could do that. I didn't know that I was doing that. And right there, you have them in the moment. You have them mindful in the moment with sensing, feeling themselves, and curious about that. So Dr. Feldenkrais would tell us, find at least 3 different ways to do any movement. That's intelligence then. If you just have one way, then that's just as a habit, and you just will do it that same way, okay? And that's what will get people into problems with pain. So your image of turning to look, like it is for most people, is in the neck. Although I've had one client in particular not too long ago, I asked him to turn to look, and he did this. His image of turning again was that I did it, and that's what he had rehearsed habitually for a long time. I'll turn, I'll just do that, okay? Another client came, his image of turning was this. Yeah, to turn to look and everything. Everybody has a different image, and that's the substance we're playing with, that function. Now, there's something to turning with the whole body. Another principle is to move through the whole body. Again, if I was to hit a tennis ball and I did this, where do you think I might get pain? The arm, the shoulder, the elbow. And people that I work with, they get tennis elbow, but especially in the shoulder that way. That person, hit the ball, that's what I do. You'll never see a pro that knows that, because that would just wear them out. They know that hitting is a whole body movement. Any movement that you can do, you're organizing the whole body in that movement. And to be aware of that, instead of, if I'm doing this, not only am I just moving there, what am I holding still? Everything. And that's an effort and action that the brain is designing that, to hold still. It's inhibiting movement there. It's fine to do that. You want to be able to do that, but you also want to know how to move and how that coordinates and connects through the whole body. And then that becomes unconscious. You just start move. That's the way I move. And that's why I think that if you continue to explore that, you can improve for a lifetime. So, when I'm observing a person, and I'll ask them, when do you feel pain? In the morning. And I'll say, well, when in the morning? Well, when I get out of bed, when I'm walking, when I start walking, okay? And then I might even go, well, when you're walking? And I'll say, well, walk. When do you feel the pain in walking? Well, it's when I take a step and I put weight onto that forward foot. And the rest of the time, I'm not feeling pain. That's important, because they've gone from I'm in pain, and that's what's in my mind too. They're in pain. I have no idea anything else, but it's getting down to very specifically, and so that they can feel even when that's when I go into pain. And that's, again, bringing their awareness to that. One time I sprained my ankle. I came down on it. The ankle twisted. I went down in a heap on the tennis court. And I was down there on the court, and I said, oh no, why me, Lord? I was winning the match too. So, and I knew that, I'd done some damage there too. What can you do from this from a Feldenkrais standpoint? Immediately with that, my attitude changed from, and tensing up all over, to curiosity. Back to that again, curiosity. And I immediately became curious about, when was there pain? When was there not pain? Okay. And I just started doing gentle movements as I would do in a session with it. Very gentle movements, exploration. And I felt, when I go that direction, that hurts. That's painful. But when I go in this direction, let's say, they're much less. There might be a little bit, but much less. So I found out that it's not just pain in the ankle, it's pain with certain movements. And I kept on exploring that. And I just started to put a little weight into the foot, and I found, when I do that weight, that hurts. When I do weight here, not so much. I was giving information to my brain about high-level information, much higher than when I was just there, no, that's low-level information, okay? Within 5 minutes, I was back up playing again. Probably was not a good idea, but I wanted to finish the match. And the pain was down to practically zero after that. Now, I had swelling, but then later on that evening, I did more movements like that. The pain went down significantly. So it's that way of exploring with curiosity. That's what I do with people. I have them explore movement, not to go into pain, but finding out what they can do easily. When I teach classes and when I teach an individual, we call that awareness through movement, that way of teaching. When I'm teaching with my hands, and I'm teaching, that we call that functional integration. And I'm doing very gentle movements, showing people, I can do that and everything. All of it's going to involve the whole body. And then by the end, they're allowing more movement. They're allowing movement to spread through the whole body instead of working thinking that they have to work on that joint or stretch that joint or something like that. They go from, that to, isn't that interesting? Isn't that, and then that's it. I've tapped in again to their curiosity with that. So people come to me, they're in pain, they're wanting to have different work done on them and things like that. And, I'll clarify for them right away that I'm not going to cure them. I don't do curing. I can help them heal. But what I can definitely do is I can pretty much guarantee improvement. Maybe even right away, right after this session, maybe, okay? And that's something that they can continue for a lifetime.
All right, we've made it to our number one healing breakthrough for pain. Are you ready? 30 years ago, if I told you that you had invisible channels of energy coursing through your body via pathways known as meridians that are a core part of who you are, you probably would have thought I was nuts. And most doctors would have agreed. Now, if I went even further and told you that the pain you were feeling in your back might be the result of one or a number of these pathways being blocked, you probably would have thought I was even more nuts. Then, if I told you I was going to help you unblock that pain by inserting some needles into your flesh, you might have politely excused yourself from the conversation. Well, in walks a truckload of unarguable research on the effects of this core element of traditional Chinese medicine known as acupuncture and its efficacy in treating a number of different health challenges, including pain, to the point where the major medical institutions of the world, Harvard, Johns Hopkins, Oxford, are all recommending this technique. Why is acupuncture so powerful? And is it something that can help you? That's where we're going next.
When I started in this field, we had a lot of pushback by Western medicine about acupuncture. They said it was unproven. 3,000 to 5,000 years, I think it's proven. They said it was placebo. Well, it worked on racehorses and infants, so it couldn't have been placebo.
This idea that acupuncture is simply working through suggestion, when we know that it involves transduction, has really been disproven.
Finally, they realized that it was good for some pain relief. And they measured endorphins and enkephalins and all the pain-relieving chemicals in the body.
Acupuncture has been studied a lot, both in animals and in humans. And when we look at how acupuncture is working in animals, we can really highly control different processes to see if we can, forgive the pun, pinpoint how it's working and what's being used. And we know that acupuncture affects a whole cascade of biochemicals, and we know that acupuncture works through the nervous system, so both affecting nerves locally where we're needling and the central nervous system and the brain.
We have a number of things that acupuncture has been proven to do, and that is stimulate serotonin and dopamine, which are neurotransmitters which are key to our sense of well-being. It stimulates white blood cell activity. It is a great source of relaxation. I find when I get acupuncture, I have what I call a visceral relaxation. It's deep within my core. A lot of people fall asleep during acupuncture. We've also done other studies to help regulate the cardiovascular system, the respiratory system, the reproductive system, and the digestive system. Points on the body seem to regulate the body. If it's hyperactive, it calms it down. If it's hypoactive, it lifts it up, it raises up the activity. Same points can do that. So there are unique features to acupuncture that go beyond our Western understanding and our chemistry model. It seems to involve energy. Well, the Chinese knew that.
A simple statement in Chinese medicine: when there's pain, there's a blockage of qi, and then, when there's a flow of qi, then there's no pain. So we understand this concept. And it's actually why acupuncture is so effective. Someone can come in with pain, and it almost doesn't matter why it's happening. You can do acupuncture, and there's all these tricks to open up the flow of qi in the body. It's not that difficult. So you do the needles, and boom, wow, the pain's gone. It's amazing. I mean, over and over, I've seen it happen within 10 seconds. Someone has shoulder pain, they can't move the shoulder. You do some points on the leg, and then, wow, the pain's gone. just like a parlor trick or something,
When we deal with acupuncture as a treatment for pain, part of the effect is due to the increase in circulation in an area, but also these pain-relieving chemicals, the endorphins. Our body has a unique system of pain relief in it, and there's a number of different chemicals in, and every cell has receptor sites for those chemicals. And if you can stimulate more of a production of those chemicals, you can lower pain.
So we can do that, and that's great. And we have to come back to, well, where is that coming from? And that's where it just gets more complicated. And that's why a lot of the treatments for pain don't last, unfortunately. You do the acupuncture, the pain goes away for a few days, maybe a week, maybe 2 weeks, and then it comes back. And so it's not ultimately with just by putting needles in my opinion, going to just cure everyone's pain. Sometimes it does you can push through enough blockage in that system in that moment in time where it doesn't come back. That's true, especially if it's only been going on a short period of time. But chronic pain is a chronic blockage of qi.
A lot of times pain is caused by abnormal functioning of the body. And if you can figure out what some of the cause is and direct some of your treatment toward that, the pain improves dramatically. So it's not just about relieving pain as a drug would do. It's about getting to the source of the pain and changing some of the dynamics in the body that are responsible for that pain.
And almost always that comes down to something in people's life that has created disharmony within themselves that's for usually years, that's manifesting now in physical form and causing pain. And so to really get to the truth of what's happening, you have to be able to start to understand, in a sense, the psyche, the mind, and the spirit of the individual.
One of the chief causes of pain is poor circulation into an area. And we in Chinese medicine say there's a lack of qi, there's a lack of flow or energy. Qi is the substance which animates our body. And this is critical to the concepts of acupuncture and Oriental medicine, is their body has this innate energy source inside, and it flows in different ways. And our approach is trying to affect that in different ways.
Chinese medicine, fortunately, has an incredible map at looking at that. And that's when we start to look at the emotions and how they're connected to the organ systems, and what emotion might be dominating can give us a pointer to what is happening in their system to create the blockage. And this goes for pretty much any kind of imbalance and disease. But pain is such an important one because people suffer deeply and they come in often to acupuncture for relief.
There has been a lot of research into acupuncture for low back pain, I think because it's such a common and widespread problem, and it's been found to vastly outperform conventional care, including medications that people are given. So a couple of years ago, the Cochrane collaboration published 2 updated systematic reviews on acupuncture, one for migraines and one for tension-type headache. And they found that in both cases, acupuncture outperformed the sham needle control, but was also far superior to usual care, which includes medications. In the case of tension-type headache, people who received acupuncture were 2.5 times more likely to have a meaningful response than those who received medication. And so the thing that has often made me laugh when skeptics have said acupuncture is just a placebo, then my question is, why is your active treatment not working as well as something you're calling a placebo? The U.S. military has been researching acupuncture intensively since 2001. They have a director, Dr. Richard Niemsau, who's an MD, PhD, developed a way of using auricular acupuncture, so acupuncture on the ear, to help give pain relief to soldiers on the battlefield. And this has been huge. I think a lot of people don't realize that typically if a soldier is wounded in battle and they're given morphine, then that soldier is out of action, and they also need to take another soldier out of the field to watch for respiratory arrest. So now you have 2 soldiers down. But with the auricular acupuncture, they've been able to provide effective pain relief that worked more quickly than the morphine that they were given, and we don't need to take a second soldier off to babysit the first, and often the first is still able to stay on task. So this is, a huge thing. I think that the U.S. military is not usually considered to be woo-woo or out there. I think they're pragmatic and interested in what works.
Here's what we've learned. Pain is recorded in our thalamus, which is part of our limbic system. This also includes our medulla, the emotional response center, and our hippocampus, the memory keeper. Chronic pain is when your brain is on high alert and pain signals are continuously being relayed. This creates sort of a memory imprint, and repeating feedback loops get formed inside of you. Instead of suppressing pain, your thalamus may start to amplify pain. Some call this chronic pain brain. In Chinese medicine, pain can be said to be caused from a blockage or stagnation of qi and blood. In other words, the normal circulation is somehow impaired. There are approved and already in use electromedical devices being used on pain with very good results. Microcurrent is a form that was developed in Germany by Dr. Reinhold Voll and is FDA approved. Over a century of research in the US, Europe, and Asia has mapped out a vast list of frequencies specific to tissues, conditions, organs, and more. Would you believe that there's a frequency for inflammation? There is, and they've been using this successfully to treat numerous pain conditions with astounding consistency. Studies in Australia showed that inflammatory markers dropped by 70% in just 4 minutes. Next, in our biofeedback section, we discovered how simply carrying our shoulders and neck improperly can lead to chronic migraines and headaches. Dr. Pepper shared how just paying attention to posture can end 6 to 8 years of weekly migraines. We dove into pulsed electromagnetic field therapy, or PEMF, which uses a corrective frequency to recalibrate our internal signaling and dissolve chronic pain. Magnetic field therapies like these have been approved by the FDA, and for musculoskeletal pain, PEMF not only gives you an analgesic or pain-killing effect, but also reduces inflammation, decreases swelling, and enhances mobility. Next up was manual medicine, in other words, hands-on physical therapy, which is an umbrella term that includes many different techniques. One form, chiropractic medicine, is a true powerhouse when it comes to relieving pain in the body. Using constructive force applied to the spine, chiropractic seeks to remove obstructions from your body's innate self-healing ability. The research here is robust and continues to pile up. Next up was the Feldenkrais method, which revolves around the question, what is your unique image of movement? The Feldenkrais method was developed to inspire curiosity in your own expression of being embodied as a human. In pain conditions, the tendency to brace or stiffen around a wounded area is normal, but this compensatory pattern is not intended for long-term use. By discovering new avenues of movement, we move into and through painful areas, bringing circulation, oxygen, and nutrients to the stagnant region. Start with gentle movements and begin to build out from there. Okay, our top modality for pain, acupuncture, has long been championed by the WHO, or World Health Organization, for many different types of pain. Chinese medicine has mapped out the correlations between various parts of the body, and by doing so, they've developed an understanding of pain as an energy obstruction. This mapping system helps to diagnose and create an effective treatment. Find the stagnation, move the stagnation, and voila, no pain. And it works over and over again. One mechanism of acupuncture is purinergic signaling via adenosine, or ATP. This is more than simple energy currency. ATP is known to be part of every neurotransmission and has cellular regulatory functions. In fact, this purinergic signaling is fundamental to every life form, and acupuncture directly interfaces with this intrinsic communication network. Dr. Mel shared research on cup puncture being successful for carpal tunnel syndrome, migraines, tension headaches, even outperforming conventional care in a lot of instances. And after a meta-analysis of over 20,000 patients, it was proven that acupuncture is certainly for real. In fact, a single round of treatment gave meaningful pain relief after a 1-year follow-up. As a non-pharmacological answer to the current opioid crisis, acupuncture is almost unrivaled. Okay, 2 more things before we go. 1, do you want to bring all of this healing knowledge into your home and help support our quest to find lost medicines that can heal a world that is hurting? Click the button below this video to find out how you can get the full Proven documentary series plus a bunch of powerful bonus resources at a discounted event-only price today. When you buy it, you'll not only have lifetime access to everything you've seen in the episodes, might I add in 3 different formats, video, audio, and text transcript, but you'll also get ebook guides on how to use alternative and natural medicines for specific conditions, extended interviews on topics that weren't covered in the episodes, and 2 live Q&As with a couple of the esteemed experts from this series. It'll only be available at the discounted price during this event only, so make sure not to miss it. Last but not least, what's coming up next? Tomorrow night, we'll be exploring a condition that affects so many and can really prevent us from living our fullest life. I'm talking about trauma, and I think now more than ever, the world needs effective inner healing approaches that get to the core of this debilitating condition that deprives so many of happiness and health. We've all been traumatized in some way or another throughout our life, whether we know it or not. And the effects of unresolved trauma, not only to our mental health, but also to our physical health, can be dire. In our next episode, we will be exploring this tender aspect of overall health with utmost care and providing well-vetted strategies to heal the psyche and truly thrive in this life. See you then.